Dear friends, welcome back to my channel. Let's read. Friends, please help me support by liking, sharing, and subscribing to my channel. From the timeless collection of Ismat Chugtai, today we'll read The Quilt, also known as Lihaaf. So let's begin with the story. This story will be read in two parts. So let's begin with the story. In the depth of winter, whenever I snuggled into my quilt, its shadow on the wall seems to sway like an elephant. My mind begins a mad race into the dark crevice of the past. Memories come flooding in. Begging your pardon, I am not about to relate a romantic incident surrounding my own quilt. I do not believe there is much romance associated with it. The blanket, though considerably less comfortable, is preferable because it does not cast such terrifying shadows quivering on the wall. This happened when I was a small girl. All day long I fought tooth and nail with my brothers and their friends. Sometimes I wonder why the hell I was so quarrelsome. At my age, my older sisters had been busy collecting admirers. All I could think was of fisticuffs with every known and unknown girl or boy I ran into. For this reason, my mother decided to deposit me with an adopted sister of hers when she left for Agra. She was well aware that there was no one in that sister's house, not even a pet animal, with whom I could engage in my favorite occupation. I guess my punishment was well deserved. So mother left me with Begum Jaan, the same Begum Jaan whose quilt is imprinted on my memory like a blacksmith's brand. This was the lady who had been married off to the Nawab Sahib for a very good reason. Courtesy her poor but loving parents. Although much past his prime, Nawab Sahib was noblesse oblige. No one had ever seen a dancing girl or a prostitute in his home. He had the distinction of not only performing the Hajj himself, but of being the patron of several poor people who had undertaken the pilgrimage through his good offices. Nawab Sahib had a strange hobby. People are known to have some irksome interest like breeding pigeons and arranging cockfights. Nawab Sahib kept himself aloof from these disgusting sports. All he liked to do was keep an open house for students, young, fair, and slim waisted boys, whose expenses were borne entirely by him. After marrying Begum Jaan, he deposited her in the house with all his other possessions and promptly forgot about her. The young, delicate Begum Jaan began to wilt with loneliness. Who knows when Begum Jaan started living? Did her life begin when she made the mistake of being born? Or when she entered the house as a Nawab's new bride, climbed the elaborate four-poster bed and started counting her days? Or did it begin from the time she realized that the household revolved around the boy students and that all the delicacies produced in the kitchen were meant solely for their plates? From the chinks in the drawing room doors, Begum Jaan glimpsed their slim waist, fair ankles, and gossamer shirts. She felt she had been raked over the coals. Perhaps it all started when she gave up on magic, necromancy, sciences, and whatnot. You cannot draw blood from a stone. Not an inch did the Nawab budge the broken-hearted Begum Jaan towards the education. Not much to be gained here either. Romantic novels and sentimental poetry proved even more depressing. Sleepless nights became a daily routine. Begum Jaan slowly let go and consequently became a picture of melancholy and despair. She felt like stuffing all her fine clothes into the stove. One dresses up to impress people. Now, neither did Nawab Sahib find a spare moment from his preoccupation with the gossamer shirts, nor did he allow her to venture outside the home. Her relatives, however, made it a habit to pay her frequent visits, which often lasted for months, while she remained a prisoner of the house. Seeing these relatives on a Roman holiday made her blood boil. They happily indulged themselves with the goodies produced in the kitchen and licked the clarified butter off their greedy fingers. In her household, they equipped themselves for their winter needs, but despite renewing the cotton filling in her quilt each year, Begum Jaan continued to shiver night after night. Each time she turned over, the quilt skimmed ferocious shapes which appeared like a shadowy monsters on the wall. She lay in terror. Not one of the shadows carried any promise of life. What the hell was life worth anyway? Why life? Why live? But Begum Jaan was destined to live, and once she started living, did she ever? Rabbo. Rabbo came to her rescue just as she was starting to go under. Suddenly, her emaciated body began to fill out. Her cheeks became rosy, beauty as if it were glowing through every pore. It was a special oil massage that brought about the change in Begum Jaan. Begging your pardon, you will not find the recipe for this oil in the most exclusive or expensive magazine. When I saw Begum Jaan, she was in her early 40s. She sat reclining on the couch, a figure of dignity and grandeur. Rabbo sat against her back, massaging her waist. A purple shawl was thrown over her legs, the very picture of royalty, a real Maharani. How I loved her looks. I wanted to sit by her side for hours, adoring her like a humble devotee. Her complexion was fair, without a trace of rudiness. Her black hair was always drenched in oil. I had never seen her parting crooked, nor a single hair out of place. Her eyes were black, and carefully plucked eyebrows stretched over them like a couple of perfect bows. Her eyes were slightly taut, eyelids heavy, and eyelashes thick. The most amazing and attractive part of her face were her lips. Usually dyed in lipstick, her upper lip had a distinct line of down. Her temples were covered with long hair. Sometimes her face became transformed before my adoring gaze, as if it was the face of a young boy. Her skin was fair and moist, and looked like it had been stretched over by her fame and tightly stitched up. Whenever she exposed her ankles for a massage, I stole a glance at their rounded smoothness. She was tall and appeared taller because of the ample flush on her person. Her hands were large and moist, her waist smooth. Rabbo used to sit by her side and scratch her back for hours together. It was almost as if getting scratched was for her the fulfillment of life's essential need, in a way more important than the basic necessities required for staying alive. Rabbo had no other household duties. Perched on the four-poster bed, she was always massaging Begum Jaan's head, feet, or some other part of her anatomy. Someone other than Begum Jaan receiving such a quantity of human touching, what would the consequences be? Speaking for myself, I can say that if someone touched me continuously like this, I would certainly rot. As if this daily massage were not enough on the days she bathed this ritual, it was extended to 2 hours. Scented oils and unguents were massaged into her shining skin. Imagining the friction caused by this prolonged rubbing made me slightly sick. The braziers were lifted behind closed doors, and then the procedure started. Usually Rabbo was the only one allowed inside the sanctum. Other servants, muttering their disapproval, handed over other various necessities at the closed door. Dear friends, this was the end of part 1. Stay tuned for part 2, which I will upload tomorrow. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe the channel. Thank you.